All right. I think we can get this started. Hey, Karl, welcome everybody to listening in on this webinar on support strategies for 2023, hosted by Mavenoid and Sigma Technology Support Solutions. My name is Mischa Schirris. I'm the head of partnerships at Mavenoid, the product support platform. And joining me here today is Karl Evans, COO of Sigma Technology Support Solutions. Karl, welcome to the webinar.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me.
As we're heading towards what seems to be a bit of a challenging business climate, we're seeing an ongoing desire by companies to stay ahead on their customer satisfaction by investing in things like personalized support, as well as self-service capabilities, while the pressure is actually increasing to manage and even reduce costs. So teams are being asked to do more with less. And we'll talk about that with Karl here. Karl, can you give us a quick introduction to yourself and to Sigma Support Solutions?
Okay. For me, I've been around customer support my whole career, one way or another, from looking after customers on the side of the road, repairing vehicles in the middle of the night, right through to running global operations, dealing with multiple countries, multiple languages, multiple problems. We decided to set up Support Solutions as a dedicated function in itself. Although Sigma has offered customer support in various functions around the organization for a number of years, we felt like we wanted to create something more flexible, more dedicated, where we don't just do it as part of our business, it is our business, so that we can be flexible, we can develop solutions that are tailor-made, that provide people with a more cost-effective, so there's not so much investment. It's built around them less than us, basically, so we can adapt and change and drive both cost and operational efficiency, basically.
Very nice. Thank you. So you've been out there in the field. You climbed your way up. You sort of led global operations, and so now you're here to share your knowledge with us and the rest of the world. So very much appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
So maybe then I can kick off by asking you, what does excellent customer support look like, and how do you achieve it?
I would say it's more about a feeling than the way it looks or the way it's measured. It's how does the customer feel after they've interacted with you or the service or your people or whatever. Did they come away feeling that they got what they wanted? Did they feel like they were treated like a human, like an individual, that their problem was seen, that they were seen? I think we all want to be seen. So I believe very much in helping customers, not just by ticking the boxes and performing the technical part of support, but actually making them feel like they were really there, and that you wanted to actually help and not just get rid of them or move on to the next one, but spend time with them and provide something that's unique to them because their problem is.
Right. Yeah, that's very fascinating. And so taking kind of a human-centered approach and perhaps rather than optimizing or focusing directly on customer satisfaction scores or first time to resolution, or saying, no, actually look at the human being, make sure that they're feeling seen and heard. Interesting. And so if that is kind of your definition of excellent customer support, what are some of the trends that you're seeing going into 2023, and how should companies kind of adapt to those while keeping that human-centered approach?
It's about going towards the customer and the user. There's been historically many trends towards moving into a low-cost country, focusing very much on operational efficiency, number of calls per hour, how fast you pick up first time, how cost effective the operation is, using automation tools at the very front end, various bits and pieces. But I think going forward into the next year in the future, as customers want to deal more and more directly with the people that make and produce the product that they want to talk about. They want to do it their way. You know, people are used to using different social media channels, different ways of interacting with each other. So customer support should go the same way. Are we opening up to be available on their wavelength? So if a customer wants to do self-help, for example, FAQs, systems like Mavenoid, where, you know, a dynamic knowledge system or a fixed one, do they want to email? Do they want to call? Do they want it in local language? Do they want it in the middle of the night? Do they want to use Facebook Messenger, for example, or WhatsApp? But how do they want to do it? I think that's the important thing, so having many, many channels. But obviously, if you have different processes for every channel, you end up with an operational nightmare. So you on one end, you create this system that customers really want to use, but you've got a way of managing it. So if you can channel all of those down into a simple internal way of processing it and working with it and prioritizing, then you still get the efficiency, but you also get happy customers. Because if you can talk to a company in the way that you want to, you're automatically happier a little bit, and then you keep building on that. But if they've had to force their way through a chatbot, or if they've had to do help themselves before talking to you, maybe they're already upset. So I think it's key to get them happy in the door to start with, and I think that's where we're going more and more. People demand an excellent level of service on their terms.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That makes sense. And indeed, I guess we all have this frustration, right, of sitting on a phone queue for 30 minutes after we've already been doing a lot of Googling or searching information online or through the manuals, and then having to explain the issue all over again, and just having that kind of frustrating, disjointed experience, taking a long time to find support. And then you're kind of 1-0 behind, right? You already are frustrated, more so than perhaps you were going into it with the issue that you had. So you're saying have an omni-channel kind of approach available, but make sure that sort of it's integrated with each other so that you can provide a seamless experience and also efficient operation internally.
Yes, exactly.
Nice, that makes sense. And maybe I can pause here for a second as well, that if in the audience, if you have any questions, please feel free to post them in the Q&A section of the webinar. What we'll aim to do is we'll answer those questions towards the end of it. All right, thank you very much. Maybe as my next question then is, right, at Mavenoid, we are the product support platform, and so we focus very much on providing support for physical products. In your experience, is there a difference between providing support for physical products compared to, let's say, other types of support? How do you see that distinction?
I think that going back to what I've said before, I think the base part of looking after a customer is still absolutely paramount, and that doesn't particularly change. Product support and system support and IT and various bits obviously all have slight adaptations and different expectations. I think that from an internal point of view, trying to support a customer, when you've got product issues, you quite often have a commercial issue to deal with. What was the effect of the problem on the user? It could be financial, it could be time, it could be causing them other problems. If it's a commercial customer with a vehicle broken down or a machine they can't use, that's costing them downtime. So making sure that they get up and running is one thing, but also is there alternatives to make their life better now? For example, if you're working with IT hardware, can you provide a temporary one? Can you give them a workaround? Can you do certain things whilst the product you're dealing with the main problem? I think you've got to look at the total picture for the customer and not just directly at the technical problem. If it's software and IT, you can tend to go directly at it because you can fix it much, much faster in most cases. Product problems tend to be much, much more complicated, not just on a technical point, but on a commercial, with a customer interaction situation.
Yeah, that makes sense. Do you perhaps have an example from your previous experience where you implemented such a kind of a replacement device as a solution?
I've seen various bits. I mean, when we've had vehicles broken down on the side of the road, you've got a number of problems to deal with. You've got a driver who's potentially in an unsafe situation, maybe needs to get home, finish a shift or whatever. So that's the human part. You've got a broken down vehicle with a technical problem, which is the technical part. You might have a customer who's worried about his vehicle, his load, the location, where he's going next, all kinds of other problems. Plus, you may have other problems to deal with at the same time. You could then have the load itself to deal with. Does it need to be somewhere? These kind of things. So trying to just solve the technical problem, maybe you can't solve it within half an hour, 10 minutes, an hour or two. Can you hire him a vehicle? Can you borrow a vehicle? Can you move the load? Can you get the driver somewhere safe? Does he need to take a break? Do you need to feed him? How can you calm the customer down? Finding out the total situation means you can then work with the different components within it. Could be, for example, you have lawnmowers as an example, but you supply a football team and they need to have the grass cut for the next game and one of the mowers goes down. Okay, well, can we get you a replacement in the meantime? Can you manage with what you've got? I mean, just asking them if they can manage, can they help you to solve the problem? They might know somebody that, okay, we can borrow one from down the road. Right, okay. And it's not necessarily about solving all of the customer's problems, but helping them to get over the pain of the initial problem whilst you solve it. So you might have to spend the first half an hour calming the situation, finding out where all the problems are, and then starting to address them before you get to the real problem.
Right, that makes sense. So indeed, just managing the situation rather than just the technical issue, and that's why it's so relevant to have kind of people on the other side of the conversation as well to take up those kind of really complex cases in certain cases.
And it's having people that really see the customer and want to help them, not just on a technical point, but how can I help this person? How can I make this situation better? Going just beyond the problem itself. Because the more you can help and make it work, the more that customer is going to remember you for making their life better. So it may cost you an extra 10 minutes or a half an hour on a call or a situation, but the repercussions are massive, both positive and negative. If you don't do it, you're the ones that didn't help. Yeah, they solved the problem, but they didn't really help. Or you're the ones that, they really stepped up. And it can make a huge difference to the relationship in the long term.
That makes sense. And so now, as we're going into 2023, and it seems like teams are being asked to do more with less, making those additional 10 minutes available for calls like that may actually be a tricky proposition, right? If you just have a team of a certain size and the number of support requests is still ever increasing, and how do you then find the time to spend it on the right kind of cases? Right? Is there a place for self-help in a human-centered approach to customer support as well?
Absolutely. I think there's a place for all of these solutions in what you provide as an organisation, but they all have their part to play. I mean, that's why we work with Mavenoid. I mean, it's not just that we have a solution. It's more about providing the toolbox to put towards the customer. When it comes to finding more time and still trying to do it with a reduced budget, I do believe this is possible. And I've seen it. I've done it. It's, for example, if you've got a constant inflow of issues coming in and you're struggling to keep up, how can you find more time? It's looking at things like, well, how often does the customer have to ring back again? How many times do you solve their problem first time? Because I've heard of organisations with a callback of 2 to 3 times. So say it's 2 times on average. So if they're having to ring, every customer's having to ring back twice. If you take your total call volume, it's realistically half that. So if you can spend a little bit more time but receive half the calls, do you actually end up with a total that's less? But you also end up with happier customers who will then move on. But then taking some of this information from the support that you're producing, because while you're helping customers and performing the support, you're producing an enormous amount of data about what their problems are, who they are, how you're helping them, various bits. It depends on the scale. But using that data, first of all, to feed self-help systems, Mavenoid is a perfect example of this, FAQs, information towards customers, but also using that to improve the product that you're making. As a very simple example, if you look through your incoming issues and 20% of them are related to the way you log in to a system. If you take that information and start to work with it a little bit and feed it back into the development system, the development teams, can they make a user interface that works better? Might be anything technically wrong with it, but if you can make it more intuitive and work better, and you can then reduce 20% of your incoming calls, then you instantly find more time, and the money you spent on the development you'll make back in a very short space. So it's not looking directly, oh, well, it's incoming calls, how do we just answer more and more calls? It's how can you use it to make things better, which will then organically reduce the calls or the need for the support in the first place.
Yeah, that makes sense, and we're seeing that with a lot of our customers as well, where it's almost taking this agile approach of, hey, what information do we see coming in from some of these automatic channels? What are the questions being asked, and can we use that information to kind of improve the communication channels that we have with the rest of the organization to inform, hey, where should we be driving product improvement? So that we can avoid some of these requests in the future in the first place. And while that product development is ongoing, still address the bulk of these questions as they're coming back time and again before we get the next version of the product out to the market. Yeah,
I think it's about having a total chain working together, because development won't necessarily want to prioritize the issues coming from support. But if you're looking at the total cost and the total impact on the customer and you're working together for the good of the customer, then maybe holding back on a release or holding back on a function so you can get this out, reduce the cost and then reduce the cases and the burden on the total process. Or the guys that are writing the FAQs and the service manuals and these bits and pieces, do they actually know what's coming into the support process? Can you work together so that what they're writing is actually what's needed and not just what's predefined as a good idea?
Yeah, that makes sense. Maybe riffing off of that a little bit. One of the things that I sometimes hear coming up from support teams is that they find it challenging to sort of get that position of perhaps prominence within the organization to have the ability to influence product roadmaps. And to kind of actually get that cycle to work properly, and they're just indeed seen as the team that deals with the issues, and besides that, wouldn't influence anything else in the organization. What's your response to that? How would you recommend the team address that?
I think a company's got to look at its own internal culture. Unfortunately, support is quite often dumped in the basement as it's just something that has to happen. We do it really well and we look after customers, but it's not necessarily seen as a core part of the organization or a core part of making things work. It's strangely, it's seen as a sales function sometimes. They use it to try and sell things, or we use it to just deal with problems instead of what can we learn from this? How can we reuse it? How can it be a part of what we know about our customers? Really embed it in the organization, like you would with product development or testing or even sales or marketing. It's all a part of it. If you think of support, it is marketing indirect, it is sales, it is product development, it's a very, very core function. So I think it's having the mentality within the organization to see the potential, and it's not just a function.
Interesting. So you're saying some of the support teams seem to be doing is, right, kind of reframing the conversation as support isn't a cost center, it's a profit center, and see our teams are doing kind of sales as well. Or you were saying that's then perhaps still kind of trying to address the problem from kind of the sort of the old mindset, and you were saying actually, hey, maybe we actually need to adjust our internal culture and just make sure that these teams are properly integrated with the rest of the organization and seen as a valuable piece there, regardless of whether they are necessarily driving profits immediately or not.
That's the thing. It's not to say they're not sales or a marketing function. They very, very much are, but it's a very indirect one. It's very much of people will walk away from customer support either that was okay, or not think nothing more of it and walk away, and they'll buy anybody's product. They might buy yours again, but they might buy somebody else's. But if they walk away feeling like they had a really positive conversation and you took their problem, you took their information and you listened and you were a real big part of it, they'll come away remembering that. People remember how you made them feel. If you made them feel good, they'll come away remembering you felt good. If you feel bad, it's just the same. Regardless of reviews and things like that, they're just a side measure. And from that, you will sell things. So why focus somebody within a call or within a customer support to try and sell something directly? Customer's not there to be sold to, and it's probably the worst time in the world to sell them something. They've got a problem. They're not necessarily going to want to buy something else right then. But if they come off the call, they might, or they're very likely to buy something else because they want to talk to you again if there's a problem.
Right, makes sense. So less focusing on getting agents to sell more as part of their business, and more indeed helping the organization realize that what the support team is doing is building brand loyalty over time, and so that will have its returns, but perhaps not on that immediate call right then and there where you're helping the user fix their issue.
Yeah, exactly.
That makes sense. One thing that kind of I want to dive a bit deeper on still is kind of like the self-service piece and how that fits into what you're offering support organizations. And so maybe to dive deeper into that is the question of where do you offer some self-service channels when you offer them? Where should these be deployed? Is this on the website? Is this on the phone? Or how to think about where you make these available?
I think you've got to very much think about your customer and how they use your product. I think deploying the website's the obvious thing these days, but I think you need to make it accessible. Support, help desk, whatever is there. But from that point, what does the customer want to do? You might want to push them down self-help and automation and systems and things, but do they want to? And is your system actually efficient for them? And so it should be there. And certainly I think when you start, it should be there in parallel with everything else. And you need to learn what they're doing and what they're using. So for example, with Mavenoid or pretty much any other one, you constantly learn, okay, what solutions do they use? Where do they go? Where do they drop out? Having that data helps you to make it better. If your customers really use self-help, then keep building on it. If they're not, why are they not? What are you not providing? What are you missing? What are your teams having to handle that could be in the self-help? It could be, for example, you've managed to create a fantastic tool within Mavenoid, and it's so big, the solution is so far away, they can't get to it. It takes too long and it's boring. Can you move it further up? So instead of making it step 20, 30, it's step 3. Is your product really that complicated? Can you simplify? Can you make it easy to use? Can you make it fun? Because people will use something that helps them. If it doesn't help, or if it doesn't get them to where they want to be when they want it, then they won't use it. But I think typically, some people will always try self-help or frequently ask or try and do things, but some people won't. And they don't want to for various reasons. it's like you've heard this I don't know whether it's urban myths or this sort of thing, where the countries have done I don't know, say COVID forms. I can't remember the exact story, but they're on a mobile website when you need a 70, 80-year-old to fill it out, and they don't have a phone or they don't want to use the internet. So why do that? You're not listening to your target audience. If, say, it's a product issue, for example, in the middle of the night, and you've got a customer problem, you probably want to talk to somebody. You don't want to sit and search. So it's finding out the different parts.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
also put these things where the customer uses them as well. Sorry.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Interesting. So the piece of where they used it as well, and indeed, right, either being a call or maybe scan a QR code or something like that for those.
Or actually, is there a way that you can put it within your tool? Say it's a software tool or it's an app or whatever. Can you connect it into that? How can you make it easy for them? If you put a little bit more effort in to integrate it into certain things, it makes it easier on the customer. The more you make it easier, the happier they're going to be. Because you can't be perfect in everything. So if the more you make them happier in the bits you can be, the more they'll put up with the bits that you're not.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And something that you said just now that kind of just reminded me as well, what we see a lot with organizations, one thing that's already very helpful is implementing this agile process of kind of dealing with improving the support content and the structure and the ways that you're offering this. So instilling this process of reviewing on a weekly or bi-weekly or monthly basis, what are the requests that are coming in? What can we answer? What can we not answer? Can we have that granular data available to actually answer these questions? Or do we only have, let's say, top level metrics to be able to dive in and really drive targeted improvements rather than just saying, oh, we need support for product X, and then starting off on a mission to boil the ocean. If you know that these are these questions that are being asked repeatedly, but you're not able to address them yet, that can kind of get you a much quicker and higher bang for your buck in terms of being offer the right support. So yeah, we're seeing a lot of that as well.
It's relatively easy and perfectly sensible to take the immediate knowledge from the team, push it into a self-help or an automation tool until you can get development release. You might have to wait 6 months. So at least it's there, it's available to everybody, you're sharing the knowledge. The more you can share the team knowledge directly with the customer, you've got a chance of reducing the calls and reducing the inflow. But don't push it on the customer. I think that's the key part. If they don't want to use it, then okay, accept that. But if you make it really good, the more people will use it and they'll return to it if they have to.
Right, exactly. Don't assume that it'll be used just because you've put it together and you've made it available, right? It's
exactly.
Have it available and see what the usage looks like in a way.
Yeah, assuming they will come because you build it is not. It's not strictly true. You need to make it look good and it needs to work, and then they will come. Yeah.
Exactly. Good. All right. Thanks, Rob. What is maybe if we start towards summarizing some of the things we've been discussing a little bit, what would be, let's say, the 1 or 2 recommendations that you would give to CX leaders listening in on this call?
I think the foundation of all of this, I think, is think about the way that you're looking at the operations that you're running or you're building or working with. How are you measuring it? How are they? You might, for example, focused on, okay, how can we reduce the number of calls coming in or the number of issues seen? Well, the easy thing is to hide the button on the website. So that's not what you actually want. You've got your measurements and the way you work with the teams should be focused on what the true goal is, and that's really helping the customer, helping the problem. If it's not, why are you doing it? That's the real part. So having first of all, team members that are very focused on the user and how the user needs help. But then, yes, we need to measure. But are you measuring things that help the user, or are you measuring things to control the operation? I tend to believe that if you measure the things that help the user, the operational controls become a lot less important. If you need to measure how many calls somebody takes a day, is it not more important to measure how many people they help, how many issues they solve, how many customers were happy, those kind of things? Then, okay, if somebody doesn't take the exact number of calls a day, okay, but maybe they had to help someone, but that guy hasn't called back. And those kind of, I think, working with the teams and the measurements in creating an atmosphere that really delivers what you want it to do, as opposed to specific measurements or expectations on the team.
Nice. That makes a lot of sense, and thanks. If people would want to work with Sigma Support Solutions, what would be the best point in their, let's say, journey to reach out to you for help?
We can pretty much step in at any point. I mean, we've got a lot of experience helping large organizations take a very big operation and slowly work with them to do large-scale outsourcing, or small startups where we're involved at the very, very early stages before they really even have much of a product, so that we have a relationship that we can then build on. So, I mean, I like a challenge. I like the customers that ring me up and go, we've got a real problem. Okay, we'll be there. And we step in and we solve a problem. But then it's an uphill battle. If we can take it before it's a problem, we can help build an organization and a structure that's ready to climb and to grow and to reuse the information. I think it's ideal. But we'll take on anything. We like to do that. We like the differences in companies. We don't like standard boxes, standard products. It's wherever a company is, everyone's unique. It's every customer that rings you is different. So we act in that way as well.
Very nice, very nice. So not just serving the big corporate enterprises out there, but also the small startups who are perhaps even, now for the first time starting to consider, hey, how do I deal with this whole support function that I need to start building up?
For us, it's the relationship with our customer. I want people to be transparent with us, and I want to be transparent with them. We want to work together. We don't want to work in the traditional them and us structure. If we are going to help them look after their customers, then we need to be one with them. We talk casually. We work in a way that fits in. That's the most important of all of it. It doesn't matter where they are or what they're doing. It's that relationship we have together. Then we all win. All
right. That makes sense. Thank you very much. And so if they want to get in touch with you or with Sigma Support Solutions, where should they go?
Come to me directly. We're on the web, obviously. You can find us under Sigma or Sigma Technology. We're on LinkedIn. Pretty much any way they want, really. We keep it open. We don't have any preference. My phone is pretty much always on. We're everywhere.
All right, fantastic. Very nice. Thank you, Karl. I think let's wrap it up with the questions that I have for you, and see if we have questions from the audience over here before we wrap things up. Let's take a look. All right. I've got a question here that I'll throw your way, and that is, let me try and paraphrase it. There's a question about deflection, and so actually reducing the number of requests that your team is getting to save costs. But so how do you think about that? Should we think about deflection?
I think the word deflection, I think is an awful word, because it sort of insinuates you're just trying to push it away somewhere else. You're trying to just get rid of it. And I think to use the word, if you want to reduce the cases coming in or the issues coming in, or deflect them, it's how do you solve the core problem? Okay, maybe you won't never solve all problems. Customer support is always trying to do itself out of a job, but never will. So either you solve it in the products that you make, and you improve the quality and improve the product, or not just that, but change it in a way that's more usable, reduces these issues coming in. Ultimately, that's a better product. Or you provide different ways for the user to help. Can you rewrite the handbook? Can you change the user interface? Can you use automation tools better? How do you do it right? But by just pushing the customer away as a mentality, I think is really bad. It's how can you help them in a better way? Because the problem is still there. If you ignore it, then the problem is your product. So I think if you talk about deflections and these, I think you risk damaging the product reputation if you're too keen to deflect and reduce calls. The reduction of calls and issues should be a result of positive action.
Right. Yeah, that's nice. So rather than measuring deflections, indeed, like put some emphasis on what are the things that you can actually address and fix, and so hopefully, indeed.
Well, I think it's very easy to create a business case to say, well, we've got this many issues, this cost us so much within support. If we then take that number of issues and that cost, put it through product development or whatever, and again, then that has a cost. So how long does it take to recoup the cost? That's regardless of the number of cases it's reduced, or the customers it's made happy, or the improvement to the product. That's just a very simple business case. Maybe you find that actually from a very simple money terms, it doesn't add up. Okay, so we accept we do that. Can we do it in another way, or can we, there's various options, I think, but make it a positive action, and then the deflection, as you call it, is a result of that positive action.
Yep. All right. Nice. I have one more question here, and that is, does Sigma also offer system integration services, or only consultancy and outsourcing work?
We're very, very lucky in the fact that we are Sweden's largest privately owned consulting company. We have an awful big portfolio that we can draw upon. So yes, basically we could do that. We can also do development. We can create systems, apps, and we've done this for a few customers recently. So we can actually close the loop as well. So we theoretically, we've not done the complete loop, but we can take your customer support. We can then use the data from that to provide development hours to then close the circuit and come back again. In an ideal world, that's what I would like to do, is to have a complete loop where really you only pay for the improvements we make. The customer support should be almost free of charge, because if we can keep the support costs down, you end up with an ultimately much, much better product. So yes, Sigma can close that loop very well and do various bits. Yeah.
Fascinating, and it sounds like you're interested in looking at, let's say, creative financial models as well.
Absolutely, very much so. Yeah.
Nice. All right. Thank you very much, Karl. I think those were the questions from the audience to address here. So I think we'll start towards wrapping up this webinar. I want to say a big thank you to everybody for dialing in and talking with us about customer support strategies for 2023. And of course, a big thank you to Karl Evans, COO from Sigma. And thanks for coming on here and chatting to us about this.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Take care. Have a good day.